Sorry.
Good evening. Today is Monday, May 19, 2025. I call to order a meeting of the Brockton Finance Committee. Will everyone please rise and join me in honoring our country by saluting our flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, agenda item number 1, please.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Lally.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would like to ask that the City Council take a moment of silence for Peggy Cruz, the sister of our City Clerk, Tim Cruz. Peg was she was all over the city, volunteering for all kinds of causes. She was had a huge impact, especially with Veterans Day around the corner. Memorial Day around the corner. Yeah, sorry, I like that. Memorial Day around the corner. She was often one of the people who put in the most work, setting up the wreaths and putting the flags out and everything. She really was a really kind soul, and she gave a lot to this city. And I just want to take a moment of silence.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Peggy, may you rest in peace.
Amen.
Item number 1, acceptance of the minutes of the April 22nd, 2025 Finance Committee meeting.
Accepted and placed on file.
Mr. Chair,
Councilor Castro.
this time I make a motion to take items 2 through 5 inclusive collectively and act on them collectively.
Second.
A motion has been made to act on agenda items number 2 through 5. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
I'll read items 2 through 5. We have the reappointment of Matthew Stanton of Tebow Street, Brockton, Massachusetts, to the Brockton Beautification Committee for a 1-year term ending in April 2026. Item number 3, we have the reappointment of Linda Picentonio of John Berman Drive, Brockton, Massachusetts, to the Beautification Committee for a 1-year term ending in May 2026. Item number 4, we have the reappointment of Kelly Hanlon of Westfield Drive, Brockton, Massachusetts, to the Beautification Committee for a 1-year term ending in May 2026. Item number 5, we have the reappointment of Peggy Curtis of Dixon Road, Brockton, Massachusetts, to the Brockton Conservation Committee for a 3-year term ending in April 2028.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Farwell.
I will, others may want to speak, but I'll move favorable recommendation on all of these people. They are well-known and have served the city well.
Second.
A motion is made for a favorable recommendation. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The appointments are recommended favorably.
Thank you.
Item number 6, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $11,961.20 from Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Fire Services to Brockton Fire Department. Invited Chief Brian Nardelli, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Chief Nardelli, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening, councilors. Thank you for having me. This is a wrap-up grant. I was just here a little while back for the Department of Fire Services Safety and Equipment Grant before we just did the SAFE grant. This was a 5-year term with this grant from the Department of Fire Services. They are hoping to re-up it for another 5 years beginning next year. These were some leftover monies that were not collected, so you were able to reapply in the same year for more funds. This will be buying turnout gear for some of our members. The prices keep going up, so we're only going to get a few sets of gear out of this money. It is a non-matching grant, and we plan to purchase immediately.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor Castro.
Good evening, Chief. Thank you for being here. Just tell us briefly, what is turnout gear?
Turnout gear is the coats we wear to go into fires. Coats, pants. They're thermally protected, so that's what gives us our protection so that we can go in to burning buildings. You've seen recently with the PFAS in gear and all that stuff, as of 2027, PFAS has to be out of turnout gear. Any gear purchased after 2027 will have to be PFAS free. That will obviously, when we get to 2027, will start to replace gear. People will still wear the turnout gear. But turnout gear gives us our thermal protection, our water protection, biohazard protection. We wear, we've transitioned a lot. If you notice, you see a lot of our firefighters in those red and yellow coats. we've transitioned into those EMS-style coats on non-fire calls to try to get them away from PFAS. We're trying to get, from 1996, when I stepped into the fire service, to now, how we've changed in that regard. We wanted everyone geared up all the time. Now, because of just the heavy gear and the weight and what it's seeing, it's having the cardiac effects on you, not to mention the PFAS with the cancer effects. We'll be at a multi-alarm fire, and we're starting to get these members out of their turnout gear sooner, as best we can, to reduce the heat exposure. You could have a January day and you're still cooking inside that stuff. It retains heat because of the vapor barriers that are in there. There's nothing you can do. That's the way it is. Fires are burning hotter now. They need to be more protected than they were, say, 30, 40 years ago.
Okay, that's good, very good to know. So the grant is just under $12,000, and you're seeking to buy 3 sets. So
Correct.
Was it fair to say they're about $4,000 each?
They are. They're a little bit over when you do the math. I'll be paying a little bit out of my. I have a line item that I purchase turnout gear in anyway. So we'll be using a little bit of money out of that on top of buying other gear. But 3 sets of gear will be purchased through this grant.
That's great. Thank you. Thank
Welcome.
you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full
Second.
City Council.
Motion is made, properly seconded. Recommend this matter favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? This order is recommended favorably.
Thank you,
Aye.
everyone.
Chief.
Item number 7, ordered that the City of Brockton appropriate the amount of $3 million for the purposes of paying for design and construction of various stormwater improvements throughout the city. To meet this appropriation, the city treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under GL Chapter 44, Section 7, Subsection 1, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the city therefore. Further ordered that the city treasurer is authorized to file an application with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Municipal Finance Oversight Board to qualify under GL Chapter 44A, any and all bonds or notes of the city authorized by this vote, and to provide such information and execute such documents as the Municipal Finance Oversight Board of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts may require. Invited to attend, DPW Commissioner Patrick Hill, Treasurer and Collector Martin Brophy, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Good evening, Mr. Commissioner and Dr. Clarkson. The floor is yours.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'll just give some introductory remarks, and then the Commissioner certainly has details on the specific projects. This is a standard loan order that you've seen many times before for other municipal projects. This one is specifically to be paid for out of the stormwater enterprise that you created recently. If you recall, the stormwater enterprise was created, and then you did some more legislative work to actually retool and recreate the stormwater authority itself and the membership thereof. That stormwater authority has now met several times, decided on a billing protocol, and there is a billing that's out there for collection right now. We anticipate, based on the current billing structure, that that stormwater enterprise will generate, I would say, roughly $800,000 per year in revenue. And so you'll see in the FY26 budget, when it's submitted to you in a couple of weeks, that the enterprise budget itself is increasing. It decreased for this current fiscal year while the work of the new stormwater authority was being worked out. But now that we have a consistent billing cycle and a consistent funding source, we're able to carry some of the personal expenses for the stormwater authority in that budget, as well as some of the other expenses. The main purpose, of course, of the enterprise is to be able to do projects within the city. And so this order represents the opportunity to do $3 million worth of projects, and the revenue in the stormwater authority can certainly support that principal and interest. So it will be totally borne by the Stormwater Authority. I'm certainly happy to answer any other structural questions you have in the enterprise, but Pat will talk to you specifically about a particular project that he'd like to pursue with this authorization.
So this basic amount came specifically, good evening, councilors.
Good evening.
Evening.
Sorry to jump right into it.
Please do.
This $3 million amount came specifically to a project at the Keith Field. As I'm sure you're all aware, there's a culvert that runs across the Keith Field that was looked at by an engineering firm for another project. They shared those results, and after looking at the results, we have since determined that that culvert needs to be replaced. Not entirely replaced, but at the very least, the roof structure needs to be rebuilt. So, you know, in working with our consultant, we've been reviewing different approaches as to how to best accomplish that repair. After, you know, several months of going back and forth, we've determined that sticking a structural liner through that culvert would be the best approach, the quickest approach, and an approach that we hope to use in the future. It's a no-dig option, much like the sewer lining that goes on throughout the city every year. It's basically the same idea, and the cost estimate that we got to do that 500-foot stretch of culvert across the Keith Field was $2.4 million. That's just a baseline that we got from a contractor who has done these installations in other places. The lining technology of a culvert or a box culvert is fairly new. It requires a lot of permitting. We've entered into a contract with an engineering firm to get through the permitting phase. It will take several months until we get to that point, but all in all, the project was $2.4 million as an estimate. We always put the contingency of 25% for the unknowns, which brought the project to $3 million.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Farwell.
Just one question for the commissioner. We are not asking the schools to pay anything towards this culvert. This has been a bit of chatter underground about Eldon B. Keith Field and the culvert, et cetera. So just for the record, this will fully satisfy, or the city will be fully satisfying any expenses that might attach to this project. Is that an accurate statement?
That the $3 million ask for the appropriation will be entirely funded through the stormwater enterprise.
And Mr. Clarkson, we will not be going back asking for any school contribution, just for the record, correct?
That is correct, Counselor.
All right, thank you. I just wanted that part of the record, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Castro.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen. I note that this project description by Savvy and Sons is dated February of 2024, so it's more than a year old. And I would suspect that with tariffs and all other costs that have gone up in the past year, it will actually cost more money. Do you think?
So the cost estimate that you saw is from an actual construction company. They do not manufacture the liner. That is probably just a mistake because the actual, I actually got that in February of this year. So I imagine that that 2024 is actually a 2025 date. But we are confident after speaking with the manufacturer of the liners that tariffs will not affect the cost, overall cost of the production of the liner.
So this $2.4 million that's listed on this project description dated a year ago, it includes the liner or it does not?
That's to furnish and install, yes.
Okay, furnish and install. Can you get an updated quote so that we have this year's date on it and
Yeah,
the same
absolutely.
price?
Yep.
Okay. I just thought for $3 million we should have had more detail.
There's not a whole lot of detail that I can provide you because the project is still at the very, in its very infancy. Once the project moves along through the permitting phase, that's when all of the meat of, the information will come, what the liner is going to look like. There's a 3D image that is completed through the entire 500-foot section to ensure that the liner is manufactured specifically for this one culvert. I'm happy to provide that stuff as I get it, but, we literally just kind of started this whole project.
Well, we're coming up with the money pretty quickly, aren't we?
We are.
Or at least you're hoping we do.
I hope so.
It's just a lot of money to have no paperwork, please understand. And I know you're busy, and I know you're juggling a million technical things, but we have to have backup, we have to understand, you know?
Understood.
Please, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Lally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening, Councilor.
So this finishes the culvert.
This would finish that 500-foot section of the culvert. So this would, that stretch of culvert would run from West Elm Street until the culvert daylights south, basically in the parking lot of the Arnone School. There's a little bit of a walkway that goes from the Arnone School out to the little park area on the corner of Warren Ave and Belmont Street.
Okay. And that, how long, I don't know if you know this, but how long would that last? Is this, when would this come up next?
While I don't know the lifespan of the culvert, I can tell you that typically when you get any kind of cured-in-place piping or a lining product, it's typically 50 to 70 years.
Okay. So a couple of us will still be here. Not me, I'm getting old. All right. All right, so that's good. And I'm glad to hear that the Stormwater Authority is up and running and they're able to start making these decisions and getting the ball rolling.
It's good to know, too, that this technology, if it's accepted by the council and we do move forward with it, this is something that we will be using across the city. This lining of culverts is fairly new. They've done a few applications in Boston, a few applications, I believe, in Worcester, but it's a kind of a new thing, as just much like cured-in-place piping. You know, as you know, the years go on, it gets a little bit cheaper. There are not a lot of installers, which is why we see that that quote from Savvy and Sons, because that was actually the only installer that we could find. But this no-dig option will, you know, in the future, you know, I've spoken to several of you today, we have several culverts that are failing, and, you know, we have one on Court Street, we have one on Crescent Street, we have one on Warren Ave, we have one on Oak Street that goes from Upper Porters to Lower Porters. If going with this no-dig option will not only save a lot of traffic nightmares, having to shut these roads down to do a complete rebuilding of the culvert, it will also be a lot cheaper, and it can be done very quickly. The 500-foot section that we'll be doing, the approximate installation is 45 days from start to finish.
Wow. World of difference.
Yes.
World of difference. So moving in the right direction. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Councilor Razak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioner,
Good
Mr. CFO. So just, I'm just going to go back a little bit. I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but so this 500 feet section, does this, it doesn't include the section that's with the Boys and Girls Club?
It does.
It does?
It does.
So we're paying for the repairs that are happening at the Boys and Girls Club? I thought it was separate. I thought for some reason we were separating them.
So when the Boys and Girls Club was assessing their project, they had an engineer that went into the culvert to assess the culvert in the section that abutted their project, or that ran through their project. And in doing so, they ended up doing an inspection of the entire reach. So the entire reach from West Elm Street to where it daylights is 500 feet. I believe, and don't quote me, I believe the section that that abuts or is part or near the project at the Boys and Girls Club is approximately 190 feet, maybe 200 feet. It didn't make sense to me to move forward and fix a small portion in the center and leave both ends undone. So when we looked at the project as a whole, because they were willing to do that piece, or they're still willing to participate, or they were willing to participate, we decided that we would do the whole stretch, because, you know, it has been identified as having issues. There is some spalling in the concrete and in the ceiling. We've seen what that spalling in the ceiling, what kind of effects that could happen, or what problems it could cause. I mean, we lost a dump truck in one of those things. There's not a lot of vehicular traffic, obviously, on that field, but you never know. There's a lot of children that play there on a daily basis, and to err on the side of caution, we certainly want them to be safe, so we propose the entire section to be relined.
Oh, definitely, and I agree with that. Safety is as number one priority. But I just, the reason I'm questioning this is, we did work with the Boys and Girls Club, and this has all been kind of to benefit the kids of, the city isn't really benefiting from this. We're kind of giving a lot away, and I just would hate to see the residents pay for, have this come out of our pocket even more. So we wouldn't be doing this actually if it wasn't for.
Had this problem not been identified, I don't think that this would have been a culvert that I would have gone out and inspected first.
Okay.
But now that it has been inspected and it has been identified to have deficiencies, the priority is to fix that one.
Oh, and that's understandable. So they are, from what you just mentioned, the Boys and Girls Club is taking care of, they are participating. And
The order that's in front of you assumes no contribution from the Boys and Girls Club. I have not had any conversations with them. I do not know the status of that project. I just know that, this came about from an inspection that was done that was related to the project. It was sent over to me for review, and upon review, it was determined that that portion of, or that section of culvert is going to require some sort of reconstruction.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now, before we get into a second round, I'd just like to add a few things. Currently, Keith Field is being used for a multitude of different purposes, Cape Verdean Festival being one of them. During those festivals, we often have food trucks, ice cream trucks, other sort of larger type of, tents and apparatus come on that field. We would not be able to hold those types of festivities on this field if this culvert's not repaired. Is that correct?
I mean, at no point should any vehicle or piece of equipment or, anything with any considerable amount of weight be sitting on the roof of this culvert.
Right. So that would just limit our use of this field for the activities that the city plans for this field.
Correct.
Thank you. Second round, Councilor Nicastro.
Thank you. Just to clarify that, it seems like that would limit, the culvert situation would limit running heavy equipment over the culvert, but there's the whole rest of the field. There's also access to the field from the Arnone School parking lot, right?
Correct.
Right, okay, that's what I thought. And the other thing is, I want to be fair to everyone. I think the boys, I'm very confident that the Boys and Girls Club will get what they want ultimately and be able to put their addition on. Knock on wood. But isn't it fair, Mr. Clarkson, that they contribute to this, even in a small way, since they will benefit from this culvert, and it will be essentially, part of it will be on their property?
I can certainly weigh in on a question of fairness. From my perspective, the culvert is the ultimate responsibility of the government, and we have sufficient funds in the enterprise to support that. I guess I would answer generally, if there's any project that would benefit an organization outside the city and they have the ability to participate, that would always be welcomed.
So, based on your cautious reply, can I expect that someone is going to broach this?
Well, and I was intentionally cautious because I have not been really involved in those discussions much. I've been aware of them on the periphery, but I haven't participated really in the negotiations or the discussions with the Boys and Girls Club. So I can do a little research and talk to some of the folks that have been more intimately involved in those discussions, and happy to answer it more fully at a future meeting. But I like to give you answers when I'm equipped with the facts to give you an answer, and I just don't want to speculate on that. So I think, as I said, in a general sense, I think that's definitely an issue of fairness. In this particular sense, I think there are others that are better suited to answer than I am.
Okay, for now. Thank you. Thank you, both of you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Quickly, Councilor Farwell.
Quickly, I always respect Councilor Nicastro's questions, but I'm kind of sorry this came up, because I can just see now certain individuals are going to seize on this issue of contribution from the Boys and Girls Club, how much, how quickly is it going to be received? We're not going to do anything on this issue until it's received. And I would just say to councilors, if we're going to have a policy for profit organizations and nonprofits that they need to contribute to infrastructure improvements, whether it be water, sewer, or anything else, then I think that should be codified. I don't think it should vary project to project. I mean, let's set out the city's expectations and say, if you're going to do this and we're required to do this, then we expect a certain percentage contribution. And leaving it up in the air subjectively to each project that may come in and each developer that may come in, that really bothers me. That troubles me, because I think it could hinder development and progress, and we certainly don't want to do that. So that would be my take on contributions from people who have projects within the city. Let's make it very clear what we want them to do and and in what timeline, because now I know exactly where this is going. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? All right. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion is made to recommend this matter favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Order is recommended favorable. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Number 8, please.
Item number 8, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $2 million from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to the Department of Public Works. Invited to attend, DPW Commissioner Patrick Hill, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman. I will offer some introductory remarks, and then Commissioner Hill can speak to you about the specifics of the use of these funds, but this goes back actually a couple of years. You may remember when we were able to secure, through the leadership of Congressman Lynch and the support of our 2 senators, congressionally directed spending, what we all used to call earmarks, for the purpose of design of a biosolids dryer. As you know, and Pat will get into more specifics, but our costs to dispose of the byproduct of the wastewater treatment system here in the city has escalated significantly over my tenure here, and it's something for which we spend more than $2 million a year now. And so the mayor and I, on our annual trip to Washington a couple of years ago, were able to work with our delegation and favorably get them to award $2 million for this design. It was actually the same year as we secured the money for the Cosgrove Pool, which is now fully constructed. But it's taken a couple of years for the appropriation to wind its way through the Environmental Protection Agency. So this is the actual grant award that stems from that congressionally directed spending. And in the grant agreement that you see from the EPA, it outlines the project itself. And so it is not new, but it is the final work of the EPA to get that money in the hands of the city so that we can design that ultimate facility that we will then intend to build. Not directly related to the $2 million, but I still believe, and that's certainly based on what we design, but because we spend so much out of the enterprise to deal with the sludge today, we should be able to successfully seek funding to actually construct whatever is designed within the appropriation for the enterprise, just using the money we now spend on disposal. So this is a welcome development. We're very glad that this money has not been pulled back, but certainly the acceptance of the city council is critical to allow us to have access to those funds to finally begin that project in earnest. With that, I'll yield to my colleague.
Appreciate that. Very hard man to follow. So this $2 billion, so the long and short of it is we've, over the past couple of years, have gone through several different iterations of what exactly to do with the biosolids down at the sewer plant. In 2023, there was a appropriation from the SRF, the State Revolving Fund, that we did receive for $35 million. After some discussions, we withdrew from that application and decided not to move forward with that project as it was designed and was on the application. We then moved into a phase, the RFEI, which is a request for expressions of interest, because there was some concerns about what other technologies are out there. Are we really doing the right thing? We had a board or a committee that reviewed these applications. One of the council members was a member of that committee. We did not see anything new or enlightening, certainly nothing that we felt would fit at the sewer plant. So upon that, we met with some outside legal counsel to discuss how we move forward with, at the very least, designing something. And mind you, the design phase is just that. You know, it's not, no decision has been made to date, but we put a contract out for 45 days for, to have consultants offer their view of what they thought would be the best fit for the AWRF down on Oak Hill Way. Several consultants went down there. They looked at the sewer plant, they reviewed the process, and we only received one submittal. That one submittal was with CDM Smith. We have not finalized that contract yet. No money has been spent simply because the EPA held the money until we had gone through this entire process, and the intent of the money is to move through the design phase. Now, the design phase may cost $2 million. It may cost more. We're not sure. But as of today, the approach seemingly is to move forward with a dryer. In order to put a dryer in the sewer plant, we need to demolish the current incinerator. There's a very limited space at the sewer plant as it sits today. So the dryer, which has not been selected yet, part of the initial phase will be to try to find a vendor and design the project around the dryer. Could there be a secondary process that follows the dryer at some point? Could it be part of this design? Maybe. We're not sure. But there'll be plenty of opportunity for not only for you guys here as the council, but for the public to weigh in on any selections that are made through the process.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Any questions?
Go ahead.
Councilor Farwell.
Commissioner, thanks to you. I had quite a bit of reading material now, and I do want to say I understand this is an old issue, but an issue of this magnitude to really have a dearth of information presented before a meeting is, I don't think it would happen in the private sector with a business, and I'm sorry that it happens with the city council, because I know all of us take this very seriously. So let me revisit history. Is there any reason to doubt that this is not going to eventually, if we adopt some type of a plant that's being designed, at least a $34 million outlay of funds?
So the $34 million project that was presented and approved by the SRF board was not only for a dryer, but a secondary process. That is not the goal as of this point. Our primary focus is to try to curve some of the costs that are associated with hauling biosolids. a dryer, you know, and when we say dryer, and, you know, it sounds like an overwhelming thing, something that's, you know, it's basically like a big pizza oven. It runs at 200 to 300 degrees. It takes most of the water out of the biosolids as they are today. It's, you know, they're currently 26% solid, 74% wet. So this reduces the mass of the solid down to 90%, so it's only 10% wet. It will reduce some of our hauling costs because you know, there'll be a reduction in mass. We think that, you know, a dryer will likely prevent about 180 trucks a year. Will reduce 180, reduce the total amount of trucks by 180 per year. Currently, we do about 750 trucks. There will also be a little bit of reduction in the cost of the tipping or the tonnage based on the new material. We don't have a firm idea of what that's going to look like yet, but I would say that likely the biosolids line item in the budget will be reduced by $1.3, $1.5 million at the end of a dryer project.
Okay, that was a little bit outside. I'm trying to limit this because there is so much to talk about. The Greater Lawrence Sanitary District has a sludge dryer.
They do.
I think you mentioned several years ago that the impetus for doing something like this is that eventually the EPA is not going to allow sludge to be either transported or to be disposed of in a certain way. So is there any reason why we're not collaborating with other communities and taking a regional approach to this? Going to the state DEP and saying, look, we have land in Brockton, we have the capacity of putting in a sludge dryer. Other communities may very well need this, if not now, in the future. We could form some type of a collaboration where others could contribute to whatever costs are associated with it and make that part of your $2 million study?
So the sewer plant as it stands today, and the collection system is its own entity, right? Like, so we don't expand that. We don't intend to expand that. We offer, you know, what limited allocations of flow that we have left to other communities. All those communities that we have IMAs with participate generally on a contractually through a percentage of flow basis. But part of the percentage of flow basis is to capture some of these capital costs. So any capital costs that would be invested into the wastewater plant for any of these communities outside of Brockton, the Whitman, the Abingtons, based on their percentage of flow, would pay a percentage of the capital to do that. Regionally, I will tell you that we have been involved in several different regional opportunities. One of them was down in New Bedford. New Bedford was going to do a biosolids project there. I'm not sure exactly why, but we were pretty far along in the process when they withdrew. And that plant would have taken care of the biosolids for the region. I'm not, you know, I think that would be it was more of a political issue than it was anything. They ended up withdrawing from the project. The MWRA, who also uses a dryer, they produce pellets with their biosolids. Those pellets, as we find today, which is why land application is no longer a viable option, are loaded with PFAS. So those bags of pelletized biosolids are real. There's no resale value to them, so it's not really one of those avenues we're even going to pursue. Biosolids as a whole, based on their PFAS, just in removal, it's become very difficult. And I mean, as of today, you can send them to Rhode Island. There's one place. You can send them to Connecticut, both incinerators, or you can send it to New York, which is pretty much the only state around here that accepts biosolids in a land application.
And by the way, the reason I'm asking these questions is it comes from experience. What we've done in the past is we've approved grant funds, we've had a study done, And then all of a sudden, everyone piles on the city council and says, well, we've done all this work, we've done all this study, we've got all this material, you can't possibly not fund this project now. I mean, we're that far down the road. And my one fear is that and I'm not saying we don't accept the grant funds and we don't do our due diligence. My one fear is that we're going to get hit 6 months or a year from now. Those of us who are lucky enough to return here in January, well, you've got to do this because we've put all of this time and effort into it, staff time. And I just want everyone to know that this biosolid sludge drying operation, according to the EPA, is not necessarily that advantageous. As a matter of fact, the EPA puts out quite a synopsis of biosolids technology, heat drying. And it's very interesting. They have advantages, and they list 5. Disadvantages: requires a substantial capital investment, requires a large amount of energy, 1,400 to 1,700 BTUs per pound of water, generates dust that can affect plant workers and neighbors in the local community and must be controlled to avoid problems during storage and transport of the product. The health effects of the dust are similar to those caused by exposure to other sources of dust and primarily affect lung function. Creates an explosive hazard from dust generated in the drying process. By the way, I'll see that you all of you get a copy of this because there is a bibliography at the end of it with different areas where you can do research. Requires systems that are relatively complex in comparison with other solids processing systems and needs skilled labor for operation and maintenance. Can produce nuisance odors that could negatively affect community acceptance of the process. And I'm not saying any of this will happen. Maybe the technology exists to mitigate against every single concern that the EPA has listed, but I will remind us that we are going to have a new project at 1380 Main Street eventually with brand-new dwellings for our seniors, and I would think in terms of a direct line of sight, the plant is not that far from that location. There's a whole compendium of things here on design, mechanical durability, moisture content, dust content, and again, I want everyone to have this because I do not want to have this jammed down our throats later on, that we've got to do this because we spent $2 million and this is the only way to go. There are a lot of issues here that the public and I think all of us need to be aware of. But now let me interject one other thing here. When this came up a couple of years ago, I actually put in a public records request for information, and I was denied a lot of different things by the law department. For example, a purchase letter. I don't know what we were purchasing, but Megan Bridges to Troy Clarkson, Patrick Hill, Dave Norton, Evan Lacasse, Steve Torres, Mike Morris, Dan Pilata, the mayor, and Sidney Marrow, and that was determined to be attorney-client privilege. I couldn't see it. Biosolids Management Improvements Design, RFP. This was from Jillian Jagling to Megan Bridges and Steve Torres. Attorney-client privilege denied. Purchase letter, again, another one, on 5/6/22, Troy Clarkson to Megan Bridges, Patrick Hill, Dave Norton, Evan Lacasse, Steve Torres, attorney-client privilege, and I was denied access to it. And you know, when things like that happen, I guess I'm only human, my suspicion is raised. If you don't want me to see it, and I'm a duly elected counselor, if there's something that is that sensitive about biosolids and sludge dryers and the discussions that are going back and forth with people who aren't even members of the city council, it would seem to me that any privilege was waived if Dave Norton and Mike Morris and others, Dan Pilata and others, were given access to it, but I wasn't. So I just want you to know I'm going to stay on this, and my last question is going to be about CDM. You said that they are the only ones that have responded to an RFP to do the study, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, so if we were to proceed with this, they do the study, we like the study, and we proceed with the project, just for the sake of discussion, who would oversee the project as it unfolds? Is it not CDM?
It would not be CDM.
It wouldn't.
It would not.
Who would it be?
It would be an OPM.
We'd hire someone.
Correct.
Right, and so they would have absolutely nothing, even though they're our engineering firm of record for the wastewater treatment plant, they would have absolutely no influence, no participation in any sludge drying project? We would not compensate them in any way for the sludge drying project if it were to go operational?
So the sludge dry, CDM's involvement would be for the design portion of it. If it were to go to a construction project, which I'm assuming is your question, CDM certainly will have somebody on staff there to ensure that the drawings are being adhered to if there are any particular questions. But in a project of that scale, we always have an OPM that will oversee them as well.
But the fact is that CDM, Camp Dress and McGee, after they respond to the RFP for the design, they're going to profit economically if we go forward with the project in some way.
I mean, I would say if they're going to profit, they will profit from the design. They're an engineering firm.
And we would give them no additional remuneration, no additional costs would be associated with having them assist with the sludge drying project?
All that, Counselor, is part of the construction contracts, so or part of the design contracts. Construction oversight is part of a buildable project, I guess. When you have a buildable project of this scale, there are what they call, resident engineers that will be on site that are representatives of the consultant, and the city would have an independent owner's project manager.
Well, I will tell you that I don't have any say over it. It would be the law department. But boy, I would want a contractual agreement with CDM that the minute that they have any conflict where the design of this project might eventually end up in their scope of responsibility and authority for which we might have to compensate them, that they would disclose that conflict. Because, if I'm going to have a new roof put in my house and I want somebody to independently come in and tell me, do I need a new roof put on the house, I'm not going to have the guy that would do the roofing give me the opinion. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. And I've been troubled by what seems to be a unbreakable marriage between the city and CDM. And there are places, ironically, in Pennsylvania, Councilor Nicastro's home state, there are sludge drying engineering firms down there that have done great work in a number of different townships in Pennsylvania. So depending upon where we advertise, that also gives us a response to RFPs, and I don't know where we advertise. Do we put anything in the New York Times? Do we put anything in the Boston Globe? Do we do anything other than the Central Register or the Compass system? All of those things I don't know, but if you cast a wide net, you probably might have more than one respondent. That's just my opinion.
I mean, I would say this, Councilor, that CDM has had a significant role in the city for a long, long time. They have been part of or been the actual designer of most of the upgrades at the sewer plant, which puts them at a very distinct advantage when they're bidding on a project. Absolutely. They designed the last 10 phases, I would say, of upgrades that happened at the sewer plant over the past 20 years. I believe that they were the original designer of the original plant, much like the water plant. They were the original designer there. It's a lot of firms hesitate to, when you get into mechanical engineering, getting involved in something that they don't know. I mean, CDM, do they have the upper hand? They absolutely do. But that, I guess, is the nature of where we're at today. I don't think it's because they're a better engineering firm. I just think that they know what the risk is, and a lot of these other people aren't willing to put that risk forward.
And I would say they are well compensated, and they're compensated because our ratepayers, the people who pay the sewer fees, provide us with the revenue to do what we need to do with the wastewater treatment plant. And that is the last thing that I would just caution both of you gentlemen about. There is a cost with operating government, and there is a cost with operating certain functions of government, whether it be the law department, the finance department, DPW, water and sewer. I do not want to put us in a position where we have to go back to the public every couple of years and say, well, we've got to raise water rates, we've got to raise sewer rates. I have not seen a budget yet that if this project were to come to fruition, this is what the city would be responsible for in terms of personnel, maintenance, operating costs, electricity, gas, whether it's a gas-fired dryer or not, and I don't want to do that to people, and especially with the uneasiness in the country with the economy now. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 3 years. And so I guess I'm overly protective, or I hope I'm appropriately protective of taxpayers and ratepayers, because they're worried too. And what we do here as counselors, I don't want to carry over to potential rate hikes, which can really hurt people.
And that's why this project is here in front of you, Counselor. I mean, we've seen the cost of biosolids removal escalate 46% in the past 2 contracts. You know, in 2018, we were paying $108 a ton to get rid of biosolids. In 2021, we were paying $147 a ton to get rid of it. In 2024, we were paying $208 a ton. It costs so we keep throwing the $2 million figure out here, but it costs $3.7 million a year to get rid of the biosolids right now. We do between 15 and 18,000 tons of biosolids a year. That cost is, you know, unfortunately continuing to escalate. There has been no, you know, real technology that has come out there to deal with this. There has been no facility willing to accept these biosolids. Which leaves, you know, communities like Brockton that have a substantially sized sewer plant to deal with it here on our own. I don't love the idea of, you know, hauling stuff out. I don't. 750 trucks a year, $3.7 million right now. I know that cost is going to go up. I don't want to continue coming back asking for rate escalations to deal with these issues, but these are real costs. And, you know, if we can control the costs by developing a plan, whether it be with a dryer and some kind of secondary process, and we can do that in-house and save the ratepayers money, or at least, you know, balance off the budget so that we don't have to continue to come back, that's what we're going to try to do. And that's why these projects keep coming forward. I know there's a lot of hesitancy with, you know, the thought of, you know, what these machines or this equipment does. What does it do to the air? I get it. You know, we've had many discussions with EPA. That's why we shut off the incinerator. You know, the incinerator is basically what we're doing now. We're just hauling it away. So if we can deal with the, you know, the sludge here in the city, and we can do it safely, and we can, you know, control costs and no longer expect the ratepayers to, you know, accept this burden, that's what we're going to do. And we'll keep trying until, you know, we get the best thing for everybody. And we'll certainly keep you guys involved as we go through the process. What's the process going to be? I don't know. What's the dryer going to be? I don't know. The dryers work on, you know, several different ways. There are, you know, probably 15 to 20 different dryers. There are probably 3 or 4 secondary processes that we could look at after we get through with the drying phase. I don't know what those are going to be, but, you know, we'll do it together, I guess, as a group. And as we go through the steps, we'll be back here explaining everything to you guys.
Now, I appreciate your efforts, and if you develop information from other parts of the country where a community or a township may operate a similar facility that would be generating the type of product that we would here based on our outflow in the system, I would like that to be shared. And the more knowledge and information we have on this, the better off we're going to be to make an intelligent decision. And again, I appreciate both of you, and I just wanted a lot of this out into the record now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Castro.
Thank you. Gentlemen, as you know, I have great interest in this since it's located in Ward 4, yet Councilor Farwell was asked to sponsor this. I note with interest that your RFP, which, God love Mike Morris, our procurement guy, he scrambled to get this to me today. Your deadline on this RFP was September 20th. So you've had this proposal from CDM Smith all this time, and you're both well aware of my concerns, how vigilant I try to be in Ward 4, especially when it comes to odors and noise and things that impact our quality of life. But no one thought to show this to me, or no one thought to talk to me about the 8 submissions we got to the RFEI back in 2022 and which one we thought we'd go with and all of that. I'm just really disappointed about all of this. And I'm not willing to go along with this without having a better understanding of how this will impact the neighborhoods of Ward 4. I also have the EPA's biosolids technology fact sheet. And there are some scary things in here that I need to be reassured that what you're going to be designing and then wanting to build, to construct, is not going to impact Ward 4, the neighborhoods or construction projects such as the Campella High Rise. My councilors know that I look into things and I try very hard to protect my constituents. And so at this time, I'm going to make a motion to continue this to our next Finance Committee meeting. I note that the funds, actually the electronic signature of the EP on these funds is April 9th. So even after you knew the funds were in, nobody thought to get in touch with me to see what I think and to help me to understand this so I could protect my clients and do the balancing act that is necessary on something as important as sludge. So I'm making a motion to put this off to our next Finance Committee meeting to give us time to sit down to help me to understand. Maybe you want me to talk to CDM Smith. Maybe I'll talk to some of my Pennsylvania connections to see about how sludge is processed there. But I have to be reassured so that I can reassure other people that this is not going to negatively impact the neighborhoods that are so close by where you're going to put this at the wastewater treatment plant. I'm looking for a second.
On the motion?
I'll second it.
On the motion.
On the motion, how postponing this, will it affect the grant? I mean, this is a grant, so do we risk losing it, or?
So just a couple quick things. Councilor Nicastro, so the RFEI submissions, you were a part of the committee, the RFEI committee.
Yes.
So you received all those submissions in 2022, correct?
2022.
Okay. That's number one. Number two, there has been no design started. There has been no design settled on. We haven't even negotiated the contract yet. And we haven't negotiated the contract yet because it took that long to get through EPA.
Right.
So we don't really have anything to present anybody now because we need to get the earmark accepted to sit down and negotiate a contract with CDM, which is when the discussions would start. This, I'm not here to say yay or nay. Certainly it's up to you guys whether or not you want to support this, but this project, for some reason, seems to get delayed, and the costs keep going up and up and up. So if it's the will of the council to postpone this, then that's the will of the council. I will tell you that, we've been at this for 3 or 4 years now. We are no further 3 or 4 years down the road than we were before. This project really, we really need to move forward with something. And this sludge hauling contract that we're in now is only good for till the end of this year. We will be putting on another sludge hauling contract in October or November of this year. I believe that's the expiration. And those $208 a ton costs, which have escalated by 46%, likely will escalate again. So again, this falls back on the ratepayers. And I know everybody's concerned about, the overall effects, environmental effects. We will do the best we absolutely can. We don't want a plant here that's going to have some kind of technology that's going to hurt the community. 750 trucks a year come in and out of the city with diesel exhausts, and we're trying to prevent that. We're trying to deal with this in a responsible way that's better for the environment. And, you know, at the end of the day, we shut down an incinerator, and, you know, environmentally, if you think about it, a lot of this sludge just goes to another community to be incinerated. So maybe it's not here in Brockton, but it's in Rhode Island, and it's in Connecticut. And we're trying to deal with it here responsibly. And delaying this will just, unfortunately, sometimes I feel like we're kicking the can down the road with this project, and I don't think that we can continually afford to do that anymore.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to respond, please.
Councilor Castro.
Thank you. This is no kicking the can down the road. This is giving me 2 weeks to understand your winning bid that you've known about since September. 8 months later, I don't know about it. I have constituents to protect. You, above all people, know about the number of calls I get about odor because I call you and leave you messages and send you texts. I don't think it's inappropriate at all to give me an opportunity to look at what you're proposing, because I don't want to squander $2 million on a design. We've waited 3 years for this money. But once we design it, there will be great pressure, as Councilor Farwell spoke about, to build it. I want to make sure we get it right before we design it. I want to understand the design, and I know how to understand it. But you didn't communicate with me. None of you did, and that's a terrible shame. And 2 weeks is not going to make a whole lot of difference, but it will to me, because I will get lots of calls after tonight. I'm already getting text messages about this. This makes a difference to a lot of people. You may not live near there, but I do, and so do a lot of other Ward 4 residents. I don't do righteous indignation very well, but come on, 2 weeks, and you want to talk about delay?
All right, a motion's been made to postpone this matter for 2 weeks. All in favor? Anyone opposed?
So what was that?
That was 3-3.
Let's do a roll call vote.
Madam Clerk, roll call vote.
Ezak.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
Lally.
No.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
That is 6 in the affirmative, 1 in the opposition.
The motion to postpone passes. This matter will be reheard in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 9, please.
Item number 9, order that the following name sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $12,000 from animal control full-time salaries to animal control overtime. Invited Director of Animal Control, Tom DeCellis, CFO, Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Good evening,
Mr. President.
Director
Councilors.
DeCellis and Dr. Clarkson. The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Good evening. I'll give a brief intro and then happy to pass the baton to Tom. So in the regular updated budget report that we provided you, you can see, and Tom will explain further, the fact that there have been some vacancies in the Animal Control Department. As is typical, what's necessary to address that is to expend overtime funds to fill those shifts. And so this request is simply to transfer some of those funds from full-time salaries where there are the vacancies to the overtime to provide sufficient funds to continue to fill those shifts for the rest of the fiscal year.
As Mr. Clarkson said, we have been dealing with, we actually have a 45% reduction in staffing levels right now. We have a vacant administrative assistant position, which is the only one in the department, which we are holding interviews tomorrow for that to fill. And we do have 3 out of 6 animal control officers out on workman's comp right now, which has caused the overtime issue. we're all still trying to deal with other employees, the remaining employees utilizing vacation time, comp time, personal, so on. So it has, our overtime line item has taken quite a hit. At the end of this week, we will be down to a balance of $56. So this is very much needed to get us through to June 30th, which I believe this amount will do.
Councilors,
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
motion is made to recommend this matter favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorable. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you very much, councilors.
Next item. Item number 10, resolve, be it resolved by the Brockton City Council to invite Jennifer Sprague, Second Assistant District Attorney for the Plymouth County District Attorney's Office, to appear before the Finance Committee to discuss the creation of a community court in the Brockton District Courthouse, which said community court will be a restorative justice program to address low-level quality of life offenses and will involve access to mental health counseling, drug and alcohol treatment, housing assistance, and other vital resources. Invited District Attorney Timothy Cruz, Community Court Coordinator Jeffrey Smith, or any other staff deemed appropriate.
Councilors, we're going to take a brief recess as we get the electronics ready to go for the presentation. 5 minutes. Thank you. Back in session. Good evening, gentlemen. District Attorney Cruz and Mrs. Smith, we appreciate you coming before us this evening to talk about this extremely important topic, the community court. And so the floor is yours, gentlemen.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. And I said Jeff Smith is here with us tonight. Jen Sprague's unavailable to be here tonight, so I'm covering for her. Hopefully we'll do a good job with the information that's been provided to us. We wanted to start off, because I know one time we were here before talking about some of the numbers here in the city of Brockton on an annual basis and dealing with the crime numbers as we're dealing with them here in Brockton. I think it's important to see exactly where we're at. And so the numbers that we've put together, which have been handed in the handouts, and I believe is working, the PowerPoint, it shows, that there's been a marked decreases in crime when compared to past years, starting back, 2015, 2017, showing those numbers that while obviously we are still experiencing crime, we're an urban community here in the city of Brockton and the county of Plymouth, progress has been made. And overall, we've seen a 33% decrease in total crime since 2017 to 2024. These numbers go through 2024 right now. Last year, there were 445 fewer reported incidents of larceny and thefts throughout the city compared to 2023. There were 235 fewer motor vehicle thefts, 33 fewer violent crimes reported, and 26 fewer aggravated assaults. And if you compare the 2024 numbers with 2017, the decrease is even more remarkable. The past year, we saw 551 fewer larcenies than reported in 2017, 342 fewer violent crimes, 197 fewer aggravated assaults than in 2017. And that's real progress. And that's, I think, what we try to do. And the way to do that is to continue working together in the community. It's got to take everybody involved, from the Brockton Police to the state police to the DA's office to our federal partners to our state and local partners. That's what makes a difference. And I think that's really been the benchmark of what we've been doing here for a number of years. And when I say here, I'm talking about the county, not just Brockton. And even though numbers have gone down in other important areas, they're less significant. In other words, reported rapes came down to just one less in 2024 than in 2023. Robberies came down. We saw 7 fewer robberies reported to the Brockton PD in 2024, but the numbers are still going in that direction. I've always looked at these crimes as one crime, one rape, one robbery, whatever the case may be, is one too many. And how can we try to get in front of those things, and how can we try to prevent those issues? We've had a slight increase in our number of arson cases. This year so far in the city of Brockton, we've had 4 homicides. Last year, Brockton had 8 throughout 2024. There are suspects in custody in all these cases, except we've identified people of interest in every incident. There's currently an active warrant out for the arrest of Da Vinci Leonard, the alleged perpetrator of a March double homicide near the Westgate Mall, and law enforcement continue to investigate a fatal drive-by shooting that happened later that month. I believe, and I'm always confident and optimistic, that we're going to catch these individuals. It usually does happen, not always overnight, but you should be rest assured that the individuals who are doing the work right now are constantly following tips, following information, and I'm sure that we'll get them. And I think that sometimes, we're dealing with a talented group of Massachusetts State Police working with a talented group of detectives and police officers here in the city of Brockton. It makes a true difference. If you recall, the DA's office moved from Belmont Street in 2017 to where we are now on Main Street. And when we did that, we moved the state police assigned to the district attorney's office, because every DA's office has a group of state police investigators assigned to them. We moved them from Middleborough Barracks, which is down Route 28, it's probably like half an hour from here at least, to downtown Brockton. And that's where they sit to this day. And I think that has been a piece. I'm not saying anything is determinative of everything that we do, but that is a piece of the puzzle, I think, in having more individuals here who are going to have that visibility, have that presence of people in the community. On slide 2, I think some additional statistics that we had regarding the number of shootings and victims in Brockton from 2015 through 2024. As you can see, there's been considerable spikes in gun violence in our city over the years. 2023 comes to mind as a particularly violent year regarding that. But things improved in 2024 with a marked decrease in shooting incidents and victims from 2023. There's a 28% decrease in shooting incidents from 2015 and a 36% decrease in shooting victims. So you can see that there's been downward trends, but they can come back in the next year, notwithstanding best efforts from a lot of good people. Currently, we have 162 open firearm cases in Brockton District Court, continued vigilance from our law enforcement agencies, and the fervent prosecutions really are the biggest item that we have against gun violence in the city. It's my hope that we continue to forcefully combat gun violence in the city, and we establish a longer-lasting downward trend. Number 3, you can see that our juvenile cases has continued to have a downward trend here in Plymouth County. We know that lots of these kids, they're youngsters. The laws have been changed. The criminal justice reform in 2018 changed the age of majority at that time, and it made some differences. But obviously, my hope is that the reduction in juvenile offenders that we have with our very successful diversion programs of certain cases, keeping kids out of the system, making sure that kids are diverted before they get arraigned so that they don't get what's known as a CORI, so it may affect their ability to go to college, it may affect their ability to get a job, it may affect their abilities all throughout. So since 2015, there's been a 39% decrease in the number of juvenile cases over that, showing that we're going obviously in the right direction. Slide 4, that can be said also for the number of inmates that are being housed. You look at the number of inmates who are being housed at the Department of Corrections, and the Department of Corrections are the state facilities. Okay, it's not the House of Correction down in Plymouth. So these are the individuals who are doing state prison sentences. So you can see that those numbers have gone down in the last 12 years, 47%. Which is great. And then you look at the numbers in the Plymouth County House of Correction also, when you look at the state crimes that are being here, and those numbers have gone down 64% since 2012. So when you look at your numbers going down, and you look at the inmates going down, I think what it shows you is that, yes, there are people in jail, and yes, they're the right people, and that they should be in jail, and when they're off the streets, your numbers go down, and it's very effective. But, there's still continued to be, there's lots of work going on. We're looking for the long-term results, not just an overnight thing. And I think sometimes you feel like you're on a roller coaster. Things will be very quiet for a while, and then there'll be a pattern of conduct that will occur in our county, not just here in Brockton. Don't forget, we have 26 other towns. We have roughly another 450,000 people that are inside this county, which is 800 square miles, very large area down here. And it's been my experience that the continued collaboration and innovation of a lot of different groups and individuals has made a difference. The next slide is, I think you see now here in Massachusetts as well as in the United States. Last year there were 30,000 fewer United States drug overdose deaths in 2024 than the year before. That is the largest one-year decline ever recorded. 48 of 50 states saw overdose declines, including Massachusetts. To date, so far in 2025, there have been, throughout our county, 24 suspected fatal overdoses in Plymouth County that the state police are investigating. 9 of those have occurred in Brockton. If you recall, back in 2014, 2015, virtually within 1 year, our fatal opioid overdoses doubled. And it was unbelievable. It was like all of a sudden we had 50 one year, the next year we had 100. That's when we put together, myself and the sheriff put together with a lot of other groups here, working with the mayors and working with all these other groups, put together the Plymouth County Drug Abuse Task Force, bringing in people who are going to be dealing with these issues and trying to get faith-based people, legislative people, you know, and also what can we do to get in front of this issue? And from that came Plymouth County Outreach, which has really been a tremendous program that has driven down, I believe, the numbers here in our county. We're talking about the outreach, what their program was within 12 to 24 hours after a non-fatal opioid overdose. All 27 police chiefs in that county had signed a memorandum of understanding that if the overdose happened in Plymouth, but the person was here from Brockton, a plainclothes police officer and a trainer would come to that person's home the next day bringing information. Stigma continues to be an incredible problem with the opioid overdoses, and people won't get help. So by bringing those things together, we saw our numbers plummet. And then when COVID came, and no longer could you go to the people's homes, we saw our numbers go back up. And then after COVID, we've seen our numbers go down. And last year, I think Plymouth County had the least amount of fatal opioid overdoses here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I think it's been working quite a bit, very well. But, you know, there's lots of different things. You know, the prevalence of naloxone, expanded addiction treatment services are out there now. Shifts in how people use drugs. Drugs, you know, today's drugs now dealing with fentanyl, carfentanil, dealing with the opiates. We have xylazine, which is out there now, which is a non-opiate, so that if a firefighter or a first responder shows up and tries to administer the Narcan, that won't work for xylazine because it's a non-opiate. So that's an issue. And as I go around, I talk to my fellow prosecutors from across America. I'm currently on the board of the National District Attorneys Association. I'm president-elect of the association. We'll become president in July. And dealing with my fellow prosecutors across America, we watch our numbers go up and down, and we all talk to each other. What are you doing? How can we get in front of this? What is best practices? Because much like, you know, dealing with other entities, we don't have a lot of money to spend, which is why we're out applying for grants as we go forward. And I think, you know, when you look at the ongoing regular police work, which has really been remarkable, I think, here in the city. Just last week, the Brockton Police and the State Police put together an arrest where they seized 540 grams of cocaine. Cocaine and crack cocaine is back. It's not just, like I said, fentanyl anymore. It's not just opiates anymore. I was recently up in Montreal talking to the Montreal police and going to their safe consumption sites and talking to the individuals up there. So what are your drugs of choice in the city of Montreal? Methamphetamine, crack cocaine. Methamphetamine really hasn't touched us yet. Every now and then, we sporadically will have some, but it hasn't touched us. And I say thank goodness for that, because that is a horrific poison that's out there on the streets. Not saying any of them is good, but that stuff really concerns me, and we've not had that as of yet. So I think that's been great. So, you know, as you talk about going forward and how do you try to think outside the box, my role as DA has changed since when I started as an intern in the Plymouth DA's office in 1983. I worked for Bill O'Malley. He was my boss. I was an intern up there. I worked there as an assistant DA through the 80s. And back then, we weren't really involved. We had our files. We had our cases. We knew who had done what. And we tried our cases. But we were not involved in prevention. We were not involved in getting in front of the problem. As I sit here now, and as we're going forward now with the community court, and trying to establish this community court here in Brockton, but it will be a countywide court. But it's a $900,000 Department of Justice grant that we got last September to go toward the development and the implementation of that court. It will be the first community court in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Mayor Sullivan, City Councilor Thompson are on the advisory board, the Brockton Police, the DBA, Bridgewater State, many other groups are there, you know, Main Spring House, people who have real life experience and trying to figure out what can we best do about one of the biggest problems that not just here in Brockton, not just here in Massachusetts, that America is dealing with. Individuals who are homeless, individuals who have significant mental health issues, who have never been diagnosed, have never been on medication, individuals who have significant drug substance abuse issues. And usually, it's not, you don't just have one, you have a mixture. So how do you deal with these issues? And nobody has been successfully able to come up with something as of yet. I am hopeful that by working with these 34 other community courts in the United States, and we've talked to the people in Connecticut, we've talked to the people in New York, as what is the best practice? How can we make sure that these courts work? The way that courts work, in my humble opinion, and like I said, I've been doing this stuff for 41 years now, is there has to be accountability. There has to be, or it doesn't work. You can't just say, don't do it again. You can't just say, we're going to give you a warning. There's got to be a process. And we're still developing that process right now. Jeff Smith's done a tremendous job going to Boston, talking to the homeless courts, talking to what's already up and running about, and trying to take the best ideas that we can and use them down here. It's a terrible situation as we drive out of here tonight, and there'll be people under the bridge. And there are people who have passed away this year, you know, from drugs and from being out on the street. We're better than that. And I think we can stop this. I really believe that if one thing, the one thing that we need is we all have to work together. I do not profess to sit in front of you and say I have all the answers, because I don't. But I do know how to get people together that do have answers. And I think that as we go forward on this grant, which is a 4-year grant, and what we're hopeful is that when this is up and running, and we still have challenges that we face. We have challenges in the trial court right now trying to get this up and running. But as we go forward, I think that we're going to be able to help people and get a better quality of life for the individuals here, and better also for the city of Brockton. I often hear about harm reduction issues that are going on, and I don't know if that's always working. Because there's harm addition to the city from some of the things that are going on. I believe that we have to get in front of this, and that's why I'm doing this. And I've already been told by a bunch of people that, Cruz, stay in your lane. This isn't your lane. Well, we have the biggest law firm in Plymouth County sitting on 166 Main Street. And just the other day, an individual came up and confronted one of my ADAs in the doorway. A young girl just started working in our office 2 weeks ago. Parks in the garage, walks over on Main Street, 8:30 in the morning, is confronted by an individual who's screaming at her. That's not going to happen. And that way we can keep businesses in the downtown. We can help the people that need the help the most. And as we go forward with this, we may be coming in front of you again to ask for your help and for your support as to what we're doing. And if you have thoughts, if you have comments, if you say, you know what, you're doing that wrong, do something else. We're here to take suggestions. Like I said, we don't have all the answers. I don't suggest we do. Because this is a really big issue. And it's not just a DA issue. It's not just a city council issue. It's not just a mayor issue. It's everybody's issue. And if we do that, I firmly believe that we can rectify the situation that's going on here in the city and also in the other places of our county that we have little bits and pieces of it. This is a county-wide court. We are leading the charge on this, and as I talk to, like I said, prosecutors in the groups that I'm involved in, they're watching us. How can you make this work? And I'm here to ask you for your help in helping us get the ball over the goal line. We can do it, but it's going to be all of us. So I'm so appreciative, of you allowing me to come here tonight and just saying a few words. Like I said, I've been around a long time. Since I've been DA, we've brought more than $33 million into our county through grants. We distribute it all. I don't take a nickel of it. I don't take the administrative fee. I don't do any of that. It goes right through us to make sure that the right thing is working. Our door is always open. We're always around to listen to you. And you tell us what's going on. People every day don't have a problem telling me, you know what, you guys screwed up. You did this, you did that. I'm okay with that conversation. I think that we need to have that conversation because there's too many moving parts in today's world. So I thank you for your time tonight. Jeff here. Jeff, you want to add a few words going forward? But we're happy to answer any questions that we can moving forward.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. I'll just say I'm happy to be back in Brockton. I've served this community for over 27 years as a state and federal probation officer, so I'm here to help solve this problem. I think community courts in general offer a different approach, and they offer enhanced information to the judge, so there's more information when they appear before the judge. They work collaboratively with the community itself, hold people accountable, and identify individualized plans of justice for individuals. So we're hopeful that this court will help match people to services and get them, in better life situations, and in turn impact the community of Brockton in a positive way. So happy to answer any questions or speak to kind of what I've been working on, whatever the pleasure of the council is.
Right. Thank you. And Councilor, if you don't mind, I was the sponsor of this resolve, so if I'd like to go first with a few questions, if you don't mind, and then I'll recognize the councilors who have questions. Number one, I just want to thank both of you gentlemen for being here this evening. I want to commend the Plymouth County District Attorney's Office for the work they do in the county. The statistics that you presented tonight are encouraging, and I think that's for two reasons. I think it's both on the enforcement side and then the recidivism reduction side or the treatment side. On the enforcement side, Plymouth County runs Project Safe Streets, and that is an amazing coordination of our state, federal, and local law enforcement agencies all working together to address different drug crimes in Brockton. It's always great to attend those meetings. You learn a lot at those meetings, and the collaboration that we have here in Brockton with multiple law enforcement agencies is really encouraging, and I know that will continue. Secondly, Plymouth County District Attorney's Office, in conjunction with other law enforcement agencies, the multiple warrant sweeps. I think that's always helpful in the city of Brockton to keep finding those who have warrants, get them off the street, and and put them, whether it be jail for those who are incorrigible, and or other diversion, I can't even say the word, but programs that divert them from committing further acts of crime. And that would bring us to the recidivism reduction. What Plymouth County Correctional Institute does when they receive a criminal, all the different programs that are available to them to educate them, to provide them different skill sets when they get released. We have Officer Frazier. Frazier, right here at City Hall.
Frazier, yeah.
Yeah, who meets with, recently released individuals, keeping them encouraged, getting them connected to programs if they need it. And so this is not just an enforcement issue that brings a reduction of crime as we see in these statistics. It's also, once they are in custody, what do we do to help them not commit crime again in the future? And so it's a wraparound service, and I think it's much appreciated. District Attorney Cruz, I want to thank you for, inviting me to the Plymouth County Drug Task Force meeting that we had a few weeks ago, and being a member of the advisory board of the community court. Counselors, what I am learning as part of these different task force, it's amazing. The reason I know we're going to be able to solve this problem is because of the people around those tables. These people are super dedicated to solving the problem, and we know we're not going to do it by arresting everybody. We're going to do it by providing the mental health treatment, the drug treatment, the housing necessary to really give people a second chance in our society. And I think that we as a society, it is right for us to provide resources to direct to helping people recover. If we can help one person save their lives, and we help dozens of people, hundreds of people all the time to save their life and get them to put down the drugs and reincorporate themselves into society. We as a community should invest in that level of treatment. I'm also learning about the increased use of situation tables. These situation tables are lifesavers through the Plymouth County outreach to really, get a lot of people around in a table and, really provide services to one individual. This isn't high level, what should we do to help with this problem? This is, Joe Smith has a problem. How do we help Joe Smith? And that's amazing. It's helping one person at a time and getting them into a better situation. And so what Plymouth County District Attorney's Office is doing is so commendable. District Attorney Cruz, you're doing an amazing job. Mrs. Smith, with this community court, we believe it is one piece of the puzzle to help Brockton deal with the encampment issue and a whole host of lower level quality of life issues. And so maybe we can start there for questions. This community court, what type of offenses would it be looking to address?
So we're looking at a group of nonviolent misdemeanors. So we have about 24 cases that the advisory board has reviewed. and we've presented those to District Attorney Cruz for final approval. So those will be the criteria for someone to be qualifying for community court.
I mean, there's trespass, there's obviously ABPO, things such as that, but for the most part, you know, they're drug distribution cases, or if somebody's hand-to-hand drugs or somebody such as that, that's distribution. It doesn't have to be a major score of drugs to go back and forth. So it's lower-level crimes that are going to be dealt with, and the way that I foresee it is eventually when they end up in court, whether it be from warning, citation, or whatever the next step is after that, if people don't show up, when they show up in the court, the way that we hope it's going to be is an individual is going to be put on initially some form, get arraigned, going to be put in some form of pretrial probation and be sent to the community court where there's going to be services there they're going to be provided. It's not just going to be sign up here, sign up here. It is going to, once again, as I understand it, be detailed things that we can help you, that there is help out there. It's a small group of people that we're dealing with here, at least in the city, regarding that, when you talk about population-wise. We're hopeful that what we're going to be able to do in the first year, and we're already halfway through the grant for the first year. It's a 4-year deal. We're hopeful we're going to get through 50 or 55 people. All together through the life of the grant, when it's up and running and working, we hope we get through 600 people. And a lot of them, much like drug court, people don't pass drug court the first time in. They come in, they recidivate, because getting away from the drugs and the addiction, the substance abuse, is an incredibly difficult challenge for individuals. But eventually, there are some that do actually graduate from that. So I look at that as we're going to learn and get the people into the court system, get them the help and the services that they need. And once again, if they mess up, then they'll be brought back in to have a further conversation with us, the court, or whoever it's going to be. But eventually, like I said, there's got to be teeth in this or it doesn't work. And like in drug court, when somebody is going through, even if they're partially through it, say 6 months into that program, and they end up with a dirty urine, they end up with using again, they go to jail. And they don't want to go to jail. And it's not unusual you see a graduate from drug court who has flunked it 2 or 3 times. And even when you talk to the judges, who many times are reticent about putting somebody back in jail, they say without the jail portion, it doesn't work. And that's why you have to have something hanging over people's heads. And I think that, you know, some of the individuals the mental health issues, I mean, I look at us right now. What are we going to do if we don't do this? You know, we right now, the criminal justice system is the depository of society's drug issues and mental health issues. The vast majority of the individuals that we deal with have those issues. The biggest detox we have in Plymouth County is the jail. And I've talked to parents who have had kids down there, and you know what they say to me? They're not saying, oh my God, I can't believe my kid's in jail. They say to me, I'm glad he's in jail. Because you know what? He's safe, he's getting food, he's getting medical care, he's getting shelter. And that's a sad commentary, I think. But it's very effective, I think, to make sure that people understand that, you know, these institutions that are out there, it's not to be onerous, it's to save lives. And I think it can work.
Thank you. So if, let's say, obviously, Brockton's encampment, anti-encampment law is one of the offenses that would be potentially used direct to community court. Now, the court is generally, it's not a punitive court, but it's more of a rehabilitative court.
Right.
If somebody who is cited by our anti-encampment laws is now presented to the community court, what type of treatment could that person expect to be ordered by the court?
Jeff?
Yeah, well, I think the goal is to try to find out what their individual needs are. So the way the grant is written, they'll meet with a case manager before they see the judge. They'll get a risk assessment done. So I think in a perfect world, when they see the judge, we know what their needs are. They may need to be Section 35, and they may need to go to a residential drug treatment. They may need just to be connected with a mental health provider and get back on medications. So we really want to take an individualized approach to find out, you know, what's going to work to make this person successful. Right. So that's, I think, the beauty of the grant is that it contemplates not only my position, but also the position of a case manager to work hand in hand with the court system already, to work with probation, to work with the clerk's office, to work with the judges.
Right. I mean, because ultimately, we're not looking just to put people in jail. We're looking to rehabilitate them so that they can become, you know, productive members of society, and this community court will be one step in that process.
You know, like I said, this is our office has expanded so much as to what we do from the preventative end of things. Whether it's dealing with drug-endangered kids, kids with average childhood experiences, whether it's dealing with kids who witness violence, whether it's dealing with the COVID issues and the mental health issues that kids have as a result of that, or the initial individuals who are under the bridges or wherever their encampment may be. And we'll be using whatever we can to get them in front of a judge or a court to make sure that they can be held accountable. And by being held accountable, the way I look at that is, initially it is, we're offering you services. Let us help you. And so you're not living under the bridges, you're not living in the encampment, so you're not, wandering up and down the streets. And so it'll be a mixture, I think, the usages of the ordinances as well as mass general laws that are out there as to what can be used in order to get people into the court system. And whatever that may be, I'm not really sure. Like Jeff said, every case is going to be different, I believe. And how can we get them in a position where they can get help?
Absolutely. And again, gentlemen, I appreciate your efforts on this matter. I believe it will be a game changer in the city of Brockton. And just lastly, when do we expect the court to be up and running, if we know?
I'm always optimistic that it's going to be a couple of months, and I think it will be 2 or 3 months before it's up and running. I also think that, like I said, we're going to have missteps at the outset because we're trying to figure this out as we go along. And we've been very lucky in going to other community courts and talking to those people as to see how they do it, but their laws are different than ours. So what may work in Connecticut, what may work in New York, is not necessarily going to work here. So how can we put that together? I think we're going to have some bumps in the road, but once we get through that, I think that's really where it is. So a year from now, I'm hopeful that they will be in a position where this court will be up and running the way it should be, relatively seamless. There's always going to be issues, I think, when you're doing something different. But I'm hopeful that we'll be up and running the way that we should be.
Absolutely. And I believe once it is, the city of Brockton will see a quick change with some of the current conditions that we have. Again, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Councilors, any questions? Councilor Nicastro.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for waiting us out.
Sure.
Being here. I have an initial question. Did you say, this is what I wrote down, that in 2025 there have been 24 overdoses in Plymouth County?
Yes.
But only 9 in Brockton?
I think I said 8. It could have been 8 or 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so far.
Fatal, yeah,
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
The Christian Science Monitor and the Center for Court Innovation certainly do support this idea. And is the state judiciary behind this?
It's a challenge right now dealing with the judiciary. I think that's a fair statement, and I'm hopeful we're going to continue to have conversations and work with them. One of the challenges that we're facing right now, quite honestly, is the lawyers for the trial court don't believe that we can give out citations, which I don't agree with myself. I think citations are going to be a critical part of this. So I want to have further conversations with them and see if we can come to a meeting of the minds so we don't have to go to court to find out what that is. But in order to get people in there, I believe we have to give them something. You are going to show up Friday, whatever the day of the week is going to be with this. I think that's really essential. I don't believe that we should be arresting people, at least not at the outset we shouldn't be. We should let people understand we're not there to hurt, we're there to help. And the best way to help is going to be, I believe, a version of a warning, a citation, and then the next step, if you have to, once an individual has been involved in that system. So the judiciary is, we're going to have further conversations with them, and I'm hopeful we can work it out.
So right now, who decides what court someone goes to? We recently passed a homeless ordinance, okay?
Yep.
We have an ordinance that says you can't loiter on public property, okay? Would that go to your community court?
Yes.
And who decides that?
Well, we're going to put together a list. I guess I decided, because we're going to put a list of those 24 violations, 24, 25 violations, including some of the city ordinances. That will be the focus of it, is to get them into that community court. That's the way I look at it anyways. I mean, I think that makes sense to me, because if you are loitering, I'm guessing you're also homeless, depending on where you're picked up. I think that would be a great step for the individuals, rather than being brought to the court where they'll give them whatever the penalty is up there. This is going to be a delayed, a pretrial probation. In other words, you're not found guilty of anything at this point, but you come in, They arraign you on the charges, which means they're going to enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. They'll continue it for a period of time, and then you will go to the community court. You'll go to where the services are, and you'll sign up for those services. If you do what you told her, if you have a good faith effort, you're not going to be violated, that you violate the terms of your release. If you don't, I don't anticipate everybody being successful the first time or the second time. But the first time you're not successful, you'll be brought back to court, and you may see a judge at that time. And a lot of it, as usual, is going to depend upon what your individual record is and what you have with the system. But my goal is to take those sort of ordinances and also the mass general laws, the vagrancy laws, whatever, such as that, trespass laws, and use them to focus them into the community courts, not the violent stuff.
Okay. Criminal, civil, both?
Criminal.
Criminal.
We don't do civil.
That's true, you're a district attorney, sure. I knew that. Once upon a time. Why wouldn't we want to do this? What are the barriers to this, or why are people resistant?
The trial court's resistant. I'm not sure why. Maybe they tell us that they have a legal issue with it, which we'll, like I said, we'll continue to talk about that. I think things that are different sometimes, people just will not take it. Well, we do it this way, we've always done it this way. We're going to arrest you, we're going to bring you in, we're going to have you go in front of a judge, you're going to be charged with trespass, we're going to dismiss it on $50 and you get kicked loose. That doesn't solve anything. So to me, how can I drive, when I drive out every night, I'm driving through the bridges. I'm driving in and I'm driving out. And I see the people that are there, and like I said, I've been around a long time. I was an assistant DA, I was a defense attorney. I've been the DA now for 24 years. And I've seen a lot of pain. And you see that pain when you're coming in and out of the city. How do you help the people that need the help the most? And that we have to do something about it, and we have to hold people accountable, because if people are held accountable, eventually what I foresee, they're not going to be under the bridges. They're going to get the help and go where they need to get that help. We need, as we go forward, we need beds. You need beds for individuals who are a danger to themselves or others, who have nowhere to go. How do we get more beds, more resources, not just to Brockton, but the Commonwealth of Massachusetts? It's essential in order to go forward. How do we make sure we have more beds down in Bridgewater when people get Section 35 for drugs or alcohol, and there's not enough beds, and people are supposed to be down there for 90 days, and they're getting kicked loose in 2 weeks because somebody else coming in today is worse off than the individual who's been detoxed for 2 weeks? We had a terrible case where a young man was dropped off at the courthouse. His dad got a warrant of apprehension, a 21-year-old man, and he was heavily addicted to opiates. And his dad got him into Bridgewater through the warrant of apprehension up there at the court. He said it was the saddest day of his life. Put his kid basically in jail. His son was sent down to Bridgewater, and he said to us, you know what, for the first couple of weeks, I felt great. I knew where he was. I knew he was getting help. But because there's so few beds down there, he was released. Like after 2 or 3 weeks. And because he was 21 and he was an adult, they didn't have to tell his dad. So his dad gets the call because the kid was released, and the dad told me later on, if I knew he was getting kicked loose, I'd have been there at the front door. Nobody told him. That kid went out, went right back to his dealer, used, overdosed, and died. So we ended up, he came to us, he came to some of the state reps, we ended up changing that law so that if you are an individual and I get a warrant of apprehension on my child, if I put you in, you cannot be released. It doesn't matter how old you are. You cannot be released until you at least notify the individual that brought you in there. So something like that won't happen again. There's so many things that we have an opportunity to do. And I know sometimes I think that, people look at us, you're just throwing people in jail. It's just not true. How do you get in front of these significant issues who are destroying people's lives? That's why we have drug courts. That's why we have veterans courts. That's why we have mental health court down in Plymouth. We're trying to get specialized units together to help the people who need the help the most.
To address the social problems.
That's right.
Because they're all falling through the cracks.
And they end up with us. And they'll say, well, Cruz, you screwed up. Well, maybe I did. But you know what? We're going to at least try to do, and once again, expand our lane. And that's why I'm applying for this grant. Why is the DA applying to put together a new court in Brockton District Court? I think because twofold, nobody else is doing it, and it's the right thing to do. So, we're going to take a swing at this. I think we're going to be successful.
Need our help? Do you need letters of support?
We will certainly, we need everybody's help for this. We really will. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, DA Cruz,
Good evening.
Mr. Smith. I agree with both of you fully in this, that accountability is a big factor. In fact, Mr. Smith and myself spent quite a bit of time in Drug Hillman's drug court of the federal courthouse. It is a long process. You saw people doing well. Obviously, there'd be some steps backwards. But the real message there was accountability. And I think what DA Cruz said, that's what's really missing in a lot of these programs. It has to be accountability and a place for these people to go. And right now, the only place you really have to house these people, I agree with DA, is the House of Correction. Yeah. And again, they get treatment down there. They get evaluated for possible Section 35, and that in and of itself really isn't a bad thing once you take a look at it. Compared it to living under a bridge, it's much better, much more humane, and it's much better for everybody involved. I just want to thank you both for coming in tonight. I know Jeff and myself had some meetings already. I'm all prepared to help you any way I can in this. I'm sure the council as a body will also. Again, thank you both very much for the work you do for the city. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. DA and Mr. Smith, perhaps instead of spending an inordinate amount of time trying to convince the judges that you have a program that will work, maybe they should be asked what their recommendation is other than maintain the status quo, because the status quo is not going to do anything for us. The current situation is such that it will probably further deteriorate instead of get better. So, I mean, I would hope in a respectful way the District Attorneys Association here in Mass could get behind what you're doing and go to the Chief Judge of the District Courts and others and say, listen, if you don't like what we're doing, then you tell us what you think might work. Because ultimately, if they do nothing, it's going to end up in we'll end up in their courthouses. And that's very frustrating. I think it's worthwhile. I really do. I like the fact that you emphasized accountability, Mr. DA. You're right. You can't just tell someone don't do it again. There has to be consequences. People have to earn their way out of a particular situation, and when they do, that not only helps extricate them from the legal dilemma, but I think it builds confidence that they won't get back into that lifestyle or that mode. So my last question is, where is the Bar Association with this? Any input or?
Yeah, no, the Bar Association actually, they're agreeing with us, which how often do you see the Bar Association agreeing with the DA's office? It's not that often. So I'm very happy so far that, as we go forward, trying to continue to keep them on board and going forward with that. So the Plymouth County Bar has been with us.
All right, and lastly, perhaps the mayor or the police chief, once we get the new public safety facility open, will have office space for Mr. Smith, and we can help you out in some way, give an in-kind contribution towards your efforts, because I do think, I do want to lower expectations a little bit. I think it's going to take time for this to have an effect. So as we open up the court and as we get rolling, if a year from that point we can look to some successes, I think that will be a good barometer of what we're doing. But I don't expect Mr. Smith to clean up the streets of Brockton single-handedly. And thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Azak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
You both know how I'm very fond of this program. I'm looking forward to developing, and I know that Mr. Smith has been at multiple community meetings where he's met a lot of the community, whether it's businesses down in Montello. You've been to the Montello Business Association, as well as with other community leaders trying to figure out how this can work. So I think that's really great that you're in the community. I will also, DA Cruz, follow with my colleague, mention that whatever you need from us, what support, we're here for you. I think this would be great. I know it's worked in other communities. It's I want it to work here in Brockton. So whatever we can do, and hopefully, I know you said a few months in the summer, we're looking forward to it. But just back to a question I think earlier, you mentioned that this is happening down at the courthouse, or I thought it was going to be a totally separate.
They're going to be, as I understand right now, the we're not sure where the actual building is going to be per se. We have talked to other people, which is not at the courthouse.
Okay.
Okay, but initially, the initial thing will be at the courthouse, and then they will be sent to get services. That's the plan right now, outside the courthouse.
Outside the courthouse?
But if they don't comply or they don't go along with it, they'll end up back in the courthouse.
Okay.
That's the way it'll be, yeah.
Perfect. So this, I know it was almost like $1 million with 900,000 that this is, so it's over a period of 4 years?
Yes.
That this is funded, and there is a possibility of continuation, or? I
You know,
mean-
I would hope so. I mean, if we're successful, like I said, we've had lots of grants over the years, and what I've found out that the best way to continue with grants and change our grants is to keep data and information. So we're going to keep all of our data together to show our success stories, and if we're successful, I'm hopeful that it can go forward. I'm also a realist in the world that we live in right now, and that although, knock on wood, our grants so far have not been touched through DOJ, but I don't know what's going to happen with grants as we go forward. I know that with the national DAs, we've lost 2 grants already, and also they're talking about taking away public sector student loan forgiveness. So one of my roles, like I said, I'm president-elect now of the national DAs, is trying to get a meeting with the administration to talk with them and talk about how important it is that the public sector loans, our people get those, because, we can't pay the money that you can get out in the real world. And you really have to have somebody who's dedicated. Our starting pay is $72,000, which may sound like a lot, but at the end of the day, the kids have college loans, they have law school loans, they have car loans, they have life loans. To me, it sounds a lot, because about 7 or 8 years ago, starting pay was $35,000, if you can believe that, to be a lawyer for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So, I mean, we have to make sure we keep our lawyers on board. And there's some people in our office and across the Commonwealth and across the country who are so dedicated to trying to do the right thing that it's really inspiring to watch them. And I know that people are watching us with this. And that's another reason why we need to succeed at this. We need to at least be moving the ball in the right direction rather than spinning our wheels. I'm confident with Jeff at the wheels and Jen Sprague from our office also being involved in this. I'm confident that we're going to go in the right direction. Get information, get data, reapply for additional grants as you go down the road. That's what it is, and that's been effective for us over the years.
Okay. Well, that's great, and like I said, whatever we can do here for
Thank
you,
you.
and it's always great to have you here telling us about the great numbers, because as always, we only hear about the bad things about Brockton.
Right.
It's rare when we hear the good stuff, so thank you again for the information. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Councilor. Anyone else?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Motion is made for a favorable recommendation. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The resolve is recommended favorably. Thank you again for being here tonight, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now we're moving on to councilors' recognition. Any councilors? Councilor DeCastro.
Thank you. I want to congratulate everyone, the actors, the set designers, the carpenters, the people who are the behind-the-scenes wizards, who contributed to the success of Brockton High School's musical this past weekend, Bye Bye Birdie. Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, I was very pleased to be there Sunday night. The show was just amazing, and they should all be so proud. They did such a great job. The costumes were amazing. The singing was great. I congratulate everyone, because it was a job well done, and we're so proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, that's the end of our agenda, councilors, and with no further city business before this committee, I declare this meeting adjourned.